Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ruth Cabal. Today on the program, the President defends the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This, as the number of COVID cases in the country inch closer to the 1 million mark. Also, the country steps up its presence in the West Philippine Sea, but the military appeals for more air and naval assets to boost its patrols in the territory. Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us live. President Rodrigo Duterte denies shortcomings in the government's COVID-19 response, saying we are not really at a total loss. In his talk to the nation last night, President Duterte assured the public there is no cause to worry. Here's the president in his own words.
I'd like to just disabuse the mind of na nagkulang tayo. Wala na kayong tinignan kung hindi yung hindi tayo nagkulang.
As of latest count, the country's total COVID-19 cases is now over 900,000 after an additional 11,429 infections were recorded on Thursday. Let's go straight to the source of the story, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Good morning, Senator, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Senator, let's start with the president's speech last night. It was his second Talk to the Nation address in a week, and we heard him. He was defending the government's response to the COVID-19 crisis. He was saying the government is working, the government is doing everything. Hindi tayo nagkulang. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm sorry, Ruth. Sobrang nagkulang at nagkukulang pa rin. I mean, the public simply wants to be able to feel that this government cares for us, and that is not coming through strongly, consistently, and effectively at all. I mean, hindi naman proof of life, di ba, earlier on ang hinihingi ng tao. That's why siguro nagpupursige sila to rare appearances within the short space of 1 week. It's really proof of competent, good, authentic leadership that is being demanded and is sorely lacking. Sobrang nagkukulang sa ngayon. Yung kanilang photo ops, mere presence, can't substitute for that clear, coherent, empathetic, and compassionate leadership. When you weigh his insistence na hindi sila nagkulang against the really sad and frightening numbers that keep climbing up, alam na natin kung alin ang totoo, no? Yung the evidence, the numbers of the cases, of the deaths speak for themselves, Ruth.
Mm-hmm. So, Senator, what do you want to see from the president? What else do you want to hear?
What I want to see and what I want to hear from the president and his administration, probably, Ruth, could be encapsulated in my rallying cry right now to step up, no, literally, and in terms of an acronym, no, S as in to standardize contact tracing, T, targeted and periodic testing, E, expanded and timely ayuda, P, protect our health workers and their families. U, upscale and upgrade the health facilities. And the other P, push for the completion of the national vaccination program. It's really exasperating that we have to keep repeating these steps which we've known from last year. Pero hanggang ngayon kasi, Ruth, hindi pa rin nila ganap at maayos na ginagawa. Kaya't nakikita natin itong napaka-dismal na health outcomes so far, and not to speak even of the economic outcomes.
Mm-hmm. But Senator, last night also, the president was saying that it's not just the Philippines that is facing this turmoil. Yun ang sinabi niya. No? We're seeing this in different countries. What's your response to that?
I'm sorry, if the president wants to play the comparison game, kahit doon, talagang mas lalong na ipapakita how we are falling behind. Yung mga kapitbahay nating mga bansa, Ruth, not just the more economically developed ones, pati yung mas resource-strapped, they are actually doing better, even with less. Because last year pa, sineryoso na nila consistently without panic, without drama, without male-fisted approaches. Sineryoso na nila yung test, trace, isolate or quarantine and treat. At ngayon, yung fifth life-saving step, which is vaccination. So yes, the whole world obviously is facing this pandemic. Halos yung buong mundo ay nasa recession din. Pero hindi yan pwedeng idahilan ni Presidente because many other countries have put their shoulder to the wheel, ginawa at ginagawa nila yung kinakailangan. Kaya periodically, nafa-flatten nila yung curve ng pandemic sa kanila. At kahit bumabalik-balik yon mayat maya, they have also raised the line or the capacity of their health system. So dalawang bagay na hindi pa natin nagagawa consistently dito sa Pilipinas. And that is on the President.
Mm-hmm. Senator, you mentioned in terms of yung health facility or health system. Last night, the President actually also addressed yung lack of quarantine facilities. But he had this to say. Let's listen to him.
I can always order the military and the police to go there and confiscate the operation of the hotels. And even the medicines. I can go to the wherever warehouse there. But that is not really what you would call a remedy desired in a democratic state.
So that's the President saying he could possibly order the takeover of some hotels as possible isolation or quarantine facilities, Senator.
To the end of his sentence, Ruth, kahit si Presidente na-realize nila na in his own words, that is not a remedy. At hindi natin kakailanganin yung ganyang klaseng mga drastic steps kung sa simula pa lang isinasaayos natin tuloy-tuloy yung ating mga health facilities. We still have, Ruth, the 9 billion pesos appropriated by us, by Congress, sa Bayanihan 2 for 4.5 billion pesos each, temporary isolation or quarantine facilities at saka temporary treatment facilities to upscale and upgrade our health facilities para hindi na uubusan ng ICU beds ang ating mga kababayan sa NCR plus bubble at hindi nila kailangan maghanap sa mga probinsya. So, for the President to now say na, okay, I will command the PNP and the AFP to take over hotels, that should not be necessary. And nagsalita na rin yung hotel industry.
Yeah, that's right.
Hindi rin kakailanganin to take over or to confiscate, to use one of his favorite words, to confiscate medicines or even vaccines. No, kung simula nakaraang taon, tulad ng mga kapitbahay nating bansa, we already put into serious motion yung negotiations para sa vaccines at para sa anumang mga gamot na madedevelop at maaaprubahan ng FDA para naman gamutin yung COVID. So, pangalawang taon na ito ng pandemic, Ruth, the President should not be, mawalang galang lang po, should not be speaking in those terms. At dapat nga, unang taon pa lang, he set into motion those evidence-based true responses to a COVID-19 pandemic. Para tulad nga sa ibang bansa, without such preferred male-fisted approaches on his part, without drama, without panic, ay naililigtas talaga natin ang buhay ng ating mga kababayan at nasasalo yung ating ekonomiya from this recession.
But do you think at some point may nakikita ba kayo if the government is doing at least something right?
Well, the government knew early on what the elements of the overall COVID-19 response should have been. Kaya early on din may lengguwahe na silang whole of government, whole of nation approach. Pero kung hanggang salita lang yon, Ruth, no, in large part, kasi parang hanggang ngayon hindi pa na-institutionalize yung ganyang responses, hindi pa na-internalize ni Presidente o ng IATF yung ganyang mga kakailanganin. Then, it's only to be sadly expected na the results and the resulting effects on our population in terms of our health and economic outcomes would fall short. No? Ika nga, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So, malalaman natin kung may tamang ginagawa ang gobyerno kung makikita natin yung ganyang mga COVID-19 services accessible sa ating mga mamamayan at talagang naaabot at nagagamit nila in order to save our lives and health.
Senator, I also remember that you and some of your colleagues in the Senate have been asking for a revamp or yung iba nga, yung to abolish the IATF. But last night, the President maintained that he actually chose the right and the bright people for the task force, and he says he will only listen to Health Secretary Duque. There have also been calls for his resignation. What do you think of that?
Napakahirap, Ruth, no? In the second year of an ongoing health campaign na obviously sa mga numero makikita natin is not working and is certainly not working optimally, napakahirap kung nagmamatigas pa rin si Presidente to hang on to the one who should be leading the health response and to hang on to an admittedly necessary structure, no, yung IATF, pero to turn a deaf ear dun sa mga panawagan na i-overhaul ito. You know, I've said from the beginning, Ruth, na dapat public health and epidemiology experts should be in the leadership, in the majority leadership of the IATF, hindi mga military experts. Kasi hindi sila yung kayang gumawa ng mga kailangan nating health responses sa crisis. At hindi yung isang military experts-led na IATF ang makaka-deliver ng isang effective health response sa crisis na ito. And it's almost to be expected, but it is still very saddening and alarming na ayaw pa rin ito tignan ni Presidente.
Okay, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. Again, Senator, thank you for joining us today. Before I leave the topic on the COVID-19 cases, Octa research is saying that we might possibly have 1 million cases before the end of April. No, you were saying kanina na kasi we were so behind, parang too late yung naging response ng government. What else can we do?
What we can do really, Ruth, is to step up. And I'll never say too late. Lagi kong sasabihin, huwag tayong mawawala ng pag-asa, huwag tayong susuko, but let's do, no, finally, let's do completely and well what we need to do. And it really is encapsulated in step up. And first, before stepping up, you have to show up. So no more pleas of these, what Senping is called hide and seek on the part of the president. But step up really. Standardized contact tracing. I've been saying that from the start. Targeted and periodic testing. No more arguments about what mass testing means. Alam natin, let's do it. Expanded and timely ayuda for poor Filipino families and the micro and small enterprises. Protect health workers and their families. No more of that late compensation for our already life-threatened healthcare workers. No more abuse against healthcare workers. Upscale and upgrade health facilities. Let's have an accounting of that 9 billion pesos in the Bayanihan 2 for temporary isolation, quarantine, and treatment facilities, and push for the completion of the national vaccination program, including clarifying FDA's go signal to use Sinovac on the seniors despite its China-admitted low efficacy. Let's provide for the health status and executive checkups for seniors before administering that Sinovac to them. And additionally, Ruth, in order to prevent the collapse of our healthcare system, maybe we could request the help of the BPOs to back up our one hospital command center para naman may sapat na bilang ng mga kakausap or kahit mag-chat-chat sa ating mga kababayan na naghahanap ng hospital room o kaya nagsa-self-quarantine at kailangan pa rin ng medical assistance. Ganon din yung mga Pilipino na hindi lang COVID-19 pero yung dati na nating health concerns ay nangangailangan ng kalinga.
Mm-hmm. Senator, I just want to go back to your statement na sinabi mo, no more hide and seek with the president, no? Earlier kasi sinasabi ng mga tao, nasa ng Pangulo now, ito, here's the president, he faced you twice this week. Do you think that's enough to allay concerns over the president's health?
Oh, well, Ruth, more and more people have been speaking up about the president's health being a matter of public concern. So everybody is hoping that there will be no more of those disappearing acts, and at any one time, kailangan yung reassurance na yung chief executive, yung commander-in-chief, is fit and able to dispense with his duties, lalo na sa gitna nitong pandemya at saka recession.
Senator, let's go to the topic on the Julian Felipe Reef. Earlier, you were calling on the president, on the government to do something, and then for China to completely vacate the Julian Felipe Reef. Pero yung recent report from the AFP says that there are still more than 200 Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea, may militia vessels, you have the Chinese Navy, you have the Chinese Coast Guard. What's your take on that? They're still there.
They are still there, Ruth. It's the evidence of our own eyes, validated by the armed forces through the Philippine Navy and the Coast Guard. So the call remains, no? Dapat lumayas ang China sa ating mga karagatan. We demand that every single Chinese vessel leave Philippine territory. Their continued and obstinate presence is a direct challenge to the international rules-based order in the oceans that has maintained stability in the region for so long. So, and really, Ms. Ruth, no, Malacanang, do something. No, dapat may gawin kayo. China is becoming the region's biggest bully. No, it's time to unequivocally stand up to her. Dapat kumprontahin na ng palasyo ang kanyang di umano best friend. Besides, what is Malacanang waiting for? Those vessels have been in our waters for the past many weeks. Dapat talaga may gawin na ang Malacanang kasi harap-harapang niloloko tayo sa Pilipinas. Now, when will all these lies stop? Imagine, we can see even in the video and your photos now, under this administration, we don't even have freedom of navigation in our own exclusive economic zone. Nakakahiya. And it's infuriating to repeatedly hear statements from the highest office of our government, of our nation, that the Philippines and China will resolve these issues because we are friends. Ganyan ba magtrato ang isang kaibigan sa kanyang kaibigan? Nagsalita na, Ruth, ang ating Department of National Defense, yung mga social media groups ng mga junior and retired officers. Nagsalita na ang ating Department of Foreign Affairs. Nagsalita na ako at ang mga kasamahan ko sa Senado. Nagsalita na ang iba't ibang business organizations, Ruth. And hopefully, the Catholic Church and the different faith communities and all of us Filipinos will also speak. Lahat kami so far kinukondena ang ginagawa ng China, yung kanyang panghihimasok sa atin. Ang kulang na lang na may gawin, sabihin or gawin, si Presidente, o di sige, sana mag-jet ski siya dyan sa Ayungin Shoal, itayo niya, i-plant niya yung ating watawat dyan.
Mm-hmm. Senator, si Presidential Spokesman Harry Roque is saying that the President is privately dealing with this issue, no? Yung sinasabi niya, and kanina binanggit niyo na rin, na daanin nga daw natin sa friendship, okay? So can we listen to what Secretary Roque had to say about this?
Ang larangan ng diplomasya, isang exception to freedom to information. Kung ano man ang ginagawa ng Presidente, hayaan na natin gawin niya yon sa isang pribadong pamamaraan dahil hindi naman po dapat inaanunsyo sa publiko kung ano yung mga diplomatic initiatives at hakbang na ginagawa ng Pangulo. Needless to say, kaya po yan covered by exception dahil the President must make the right decision no matter what. So let's leave the President to his devices. Napakita naman po niya na so far, in the past 5 years of his administration, we have moved from a position of antagonism with China to a position of friendship.
Senator, from a position of antagonism to a position of friendship, is that a good thing?
It would be a good thing, Ms. Ruth, if that had been marked by mutual respect. Tayo sobra na ngang gumagalang kahit sa maling ginagawa ng China na yumuyuko na tayo sa kanya. At siya naman, hindi friendship, hindi respect ang pinapakita natin. Kitang-kita natin sa sunod-sunod na ginagawa niya sa atin sa kanyang Coast Guard law, sa pagtataboy ng ating mangingisda, ngayon sa paghabol pa ng isang ABS-CBN news team mula sa sarili nating teritoryo. And wow, double whammy yung sinabi ni Sec Roque. Laban na sa diplomasya, laban pa sa freedom of information. Meron silang executive order tungkol dyan, pero nilalabag din. Besides, all the information about what China is doing to us in the West Philippine Sea is out there. And all the information also about yung hindi pagsagot, pagtindig ng Malacanang sa China. Diplomasya, our own Secretary of Foreign Affairs has stated clearly for those ships to leave now, and he has cited our historic ruling at The Hague in 2016. Binabawasan ang impact niya ng presidente mismo sa ganyang idadaan na lang daw niya sa pribadong pag-uusap. Oh, I'm sorry Ruth, hindi. Ang ginagawa ng China sa atin, sa ating dagat ay napaka-publiko. Ito po ay pambabastos sa ating buong bansa, and it's really a sorry sight that the president is falling behind in his silence behind the growing number of expressions of indignation and assertions of the national interest by different voices and institutions mula sa loob ng gobyerno, mula sa civil society at mula na rin sa private sector.
Okay, we'll talk more about that. We'll just take a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, let's go back to the issue of the Chinese vessels over the West Philippine Sea. Do you think you were saying China's the region's biggest bully amidst this pandemic? Do you think it has something to do with that, China's timing?
Exactly. You're exactly right, Ms. Ruth. China has opportunistically used the pandemic as a cover to further her excessive ambitions in the whole of the South China Sea, pati dito sa ating West Philippine Sea. Gusto yata niya kaliwaan na dahil meron siyang dinonate na vaccine sa atin, may pinoprocure tayo sa kanila, ay pwedeng kapalit diyan. Natanggapin lang natin, lunukin lang natin yung pang-aagaw niya ng teritoryo natin sa West Philippine Sea. I'm sorry, those are two different matters. Kung may donasyon siya ng vaccine, salamat. Kung may pinoprocure tayong vaccine sa kanya, that's business. Pero itong usapin ng national sovereignty, karapatan ng mangingisda natin, ecological sustainability at freedom of navigation ng mga Pilipino, pati ng Pilipinong media sa ating karagatan. Atin lang yan. That is not subject to negotiation with her, and certainly hindi kapalit niya ng anumang vaccines o ano pa mang ibang binibigay or ibinebenta niya sa atin.
Okay. Senator, before we let you go, kasi medyo mainit din itong issue ng usapin dito sa presyo ng baboy, no, sa palengke. And yesterday, the Committee of the Whole of the Senate, no, you passed a resolution, medyo komplikado lang yung issue, but you passed a resolution taking back or revoking yung EO 128, which authorizes the president to increase the tax imports and then the volume. Ano po? Can you just explain ano po ba ang pwedeng mangyari? Anong effect nito possibly sa presyo ng baboy, and then overall, in terms of the overall supply of meat?
Well, yung aming resolution, Ruth, called on the president to withdraw his executive order dahil ang sense of the Senate namin ay hindi nakatutulong talaga ni sa consumers, ni lalo sa mga domestic pork producers natin. Itong balak ng EO, no, na itaas yung minimum access volume o yung dami ng importation na pwedeng ipasok, imported pork products dito sa atin, while at the same time binabagsak yung taripa. Ang pangunahing concern ng mga local pork producers dyan ay kung ituloy yung pag-implementa ng EO, mas lalong makakapasok yung Asian swine fever dahil mukhang mula sa imported pork pumasok yung sakit na iyan na lalong nakasama hindi lang sa local pork producers pati sa ating mga consumers. Ang nasa resolution din namin, Ruth, ay kung hindi pa rin makinig si Presidente, ay magfa-file pagbukas ulit, pag-resume ng session ng Senado sa May 17, magfa-file ng panukalang batas ang aming minority leader si Sen. Frank ng panukala na bawiin na ng Kongreso yung delegated power niya, dinelegate sa Presidente to set those tariffs. Kasi by law, Ruth, yung pagtaas o pagbaba, basta pag-set ng tariff, pati itong ginagawa ngayon ng EO na pagbaba ng tariff sa imported pork, yan po ay kapangyarihan ng Kongreso, hindi originally ng executive.
Pero Senator, quickly lang, no? Right now, what can we do to lower yung presyo ng baboy more than 400 pesos a kilo na po ngayon? So ngayon lang po, what can we do? What can the government do?
Well, government could also heed one proposal of the Senate. I raised it in the first committee hearing at tinanggap eventually ng DA Secretary Dar na mag-set siya ng price control sa imported pork at saka suggested retail price o SRP sa local pork para bigyan ng mas affordable na alternatives yung ating mga mamimili and at the same time bigyan ng minimum na support yung ating local pork producers.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Senator Risa Hontiveros, and thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ruth Cabal. You're watching CNN Philippines.